Hello and welcome to the Cook Memorial Public Library Podcast. I'm your host, Nate Goss. Well, it's a little late this year, but awards season is finally wrapping up and the Academy Awards are now complete. But the awards season wouldn't be entirely complete without the library's Best of the Year and Oscars recap episode we do annually. This is the 6th year we've had AV librarian Becky King on the podcast to review the year in film and talk about this year's Academy Awards ceremony. We cover a lot of movies in this episode, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. Let's go right over to my conversation with Becky King. All right, Becky, welcome back to the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast.
Thanks.
We've been doing this, I don't even know how many years we've been doing this now.
A long time.
Since the podcast has been around, though. So
right.
Always fun to recap the Academy Awards, which were last night.
Yeah.
It was different.
It was different is the word. You know, it was my first reaction. It was shocking to see people without masks gathered like that.
You like to see it. You like to
think,
hopefully this is a sign of things opening up a little bit more. And
right. There's hope, right? For the rest of us.
That it was done safely. Although, I wasn't used to the venue. The venue felt kind of weird to me.
So Union Station in Los Angeles, for those that didn't see it.
Yeah.
It looked like a nightclub kind of thing.
Yeah. It had a nightclub or like a hotel lounge kind of feel to it a little bit. So it was to me, first impression is that it was a huge night for Nomadland.
Right. Which we were glad to see, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, aside from winning Best Picture, you got Best Director with Chloe Zhao and Frances McDormand winning her third Oscar, I want to say.
I think so,
for her performance in Nomadland.
And well-deserved. I loved her performance in that movie.
Yeah.
It didn't win cinematography, which I was really disappointed. I mean, I understand why Mank won cinematography, but boy, Nomadland was a beautiful film.
Yeah, no cinematography for that. Yeah, I don't know. I was disappointed too because I was not a huge fan of Mank personally. I don't know.
Yeah, that was heavy lifting to watch for me.
Yeah.
And I love classic movies and all that. And it was still, I mean, it was really well done, but it was a harder watch.
But yeah, so Nomadland, we're both big fans of this movie. Can we just take this moment though to also just plug the writer? Because any moment we can get to do that, we should.
Which is Chloe Zhao's the film she did previously, which we both loved when it came out. And same feel, where she does such a great job working with, non-professional actors and beautifully filmed and a moving film. Love it.
So if anyone here has not seen The Rider and you're just now getting introduced to Chloe Zhao, you've got to go back and watch that movie. I like Nomadland a lot, don't get me wrong. But if I had to pick between the two, I think I'm still going with The Rider a little bit.
More happens in The Rider. It has kind of more of a plot line, if you want to call it that. But I don't know, something about Nomadland and the times we're in really resonated for me, and I think a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, and she's on to bigger and better things. It's amazing.
Yeah, Chloe Zhao's she's gonna be doing
Marvel
one of the next Marvel movies. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what she brings to that.
So what other awards were you happy to see or kind of struck you about last night?
There's always, it seems every year there's a category where it's just loaded, and everybody deserves to win. I think this year it was the supporting actor category.
I was going to say same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved Daniel Kaluuya's performance in Judas and the Black Messiah. He deserved to win hands down. I honestly don't understand why he wasn't nominated for lead actor, but that's the business. Because those were equally starring roles in that
for
film,
sure, and
with, Lakeith Stanfield. So,
and what's sad is that when you put them against each other, one of them has to lose.
Exactly. Right.
I love that movie, by the way.
Yes.
Judas and the Black Messiah. Didn't know a thing about Fred Hampton before watching it, and Lakeith Stanfield. I love everything he's in.
Yeah,
and he just does such a great job of being just sort of a kind of a wormy, schemy kind of character.
Right. It would be interesting to see him where he plays like a good guy for a change. But
yeah. He plays an informant, but he's so like torn up inside. But it's but it's not overacted. That's what I really loved about that. It's all just sort of in his face and in his body, and it's not like an overacted performance at all.
Right. I mean, they always say the key to recognizing a talented actor is how he reacts. He's a great reactor.
For sure.
And the movie wouldn't be the same without him. And so what I was saying about the category being loaded is I think if either one of them had not been in that category, Paul Raci from Sound of Metal might have won. And that was a fabulous performance too. And probably the performance of his career. He's had a long career.
And that movie, Sound of Metal, that was one of my favorites of the year.
Yeah.
And that one, I want to just make a note real quick of it winning. It's not an award that we usually talk about, but it won for sound and it won for editing.
Yes.
And both of those components in that movie are just incredible because it's this movie about someone who loses their hearing. And I've never seen a movie that's just so immersive in that. When you're watching it, like you really get a sense of what that feels like, and kind of
exactly,
kind of that mixture of the horror of it and just sort of the strangeness of it, and
the slow realization that your life has changed. It's stunning, and I think that would be a movie that I would definitely point people to. Make sure that they seek that movie out. It may be a little harder to find for a while because the description of it, you're like, meh, you know what I mean?
I mean, I was a little trepidatious going into it because, I mean, I don't know. It sounds like it's going to be such a hard watch,
right?
But it's really not.
Incredibly heartwarming movie, and we're not saying enough about it. I think he goes into a deaf community to learn to adapt to his hearing loss, and it is just phenomenal, heartwarming, inspirational. There's some sad moments, obviously. Just incredibly well done.
And so Paul Raci plays sort of the head counselor or whatever you want to call of this community. I love that character in the movie,
Yes. And his backstory makes it all the more amazing. He was born to parents who were deaf, and he grew up in that environment. So he, totally comfortable. You can tell he's just incredible.
So what other key moments do you think there were for the night, or just for like what movies were you happy to see got some love last night?
Like we said, I was thrilled to see Frances McDormand won. I know there's probably going to be some controversy about Anthony Hopkins winning for The Father, just because I think everyone was sort of expecting it to go to Chadwick Boseman.
Well, I think they honestly changed the entire order of the show for that reason.
And we should talk about that.
And then it just fell flat.
Right. And for those that don't know, they, instead of announcing Best Picture as the last award of the evening, which is always the big building up, they did that third to last. And then they did the actress and actor. And I think they were expecting to be a nice, heartwarming tribute to Chadwick Boseman, who died tragically earlier in the year. But instead, Anthony Hopkins won. He wasn't there, and it just kind of ended. But anyway, did you see The Father?
That's the one I still need to see, actually.
That one, luckily, is out on DVD already, so people will be able to catch that performance. It's really great. I know it isn't the same, emotional win as Chadwick Boseman would have been for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but you can't say it wasn't deserved. That's a great performance and a really unsettling film about an older man with dementia, and you just see his confusion.
Yeah, I think why I kind of held back on that one was I thought it was just going to be sort of another really heavy drama about, taking care of someone who is suffering from dementia. And the more I've read about it, the more I kind of understand it as really kind of getting into the mind of the Anthony Hopkins character.
They capture the confusion and the frustration because the scene is always changing. He's not sure. As the movie goes along, you can see he's not sure where he is. The people are different. He's confusing who they are. And you see it from his point of view, almost the same way that you were mentioning about Sound of Metal, where you understand the hearing loss from the person's perspective. This, you understand the confusion in those early days of dementia from the person's perspective. It sounds utterly heavy and depressing. It's just a really, really good movie.
Well, the thing that made me kind of pause and say, maybe I should finally check this out, that it maybe isn't just sort of that, kind of gunning for that Oscar type heavy.
Right.
But what I heard was that someone kind of actually compared it to some of like Charlie Kaufman's work, in the way that it is so just sort of like it kind of messes with your mind a little bit.
Exactly. You're not sure what's going on either.
And so for those of you who don't know Charlie Kaufman, he did like Synecdoche, New York, and he did like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Right. And so that kind of movie is totally up my alley. And I was like, all right, I need to see this movie,
It's incredibly well done. And I think they won for set design or production design or something like that, which you'll totally understand when you see the movie.
Can we talk a little bit about the one category that I thought was really strong this year was the documentary category?
Sure. Yeah.
So the award ended up going to My Octopus Teacher. Have you seen that one at all?
That one I haven't seen.
Okay.
So I'm really curious about it.
I highly recommend it. You will learn a lot about octopus, and this is it's a really cool thing that this guy Craig Fisher kind of captured scuba diving, where he befriended, and I do actually mean that, because you find out how intelligent octopus are.
Yeah.
They kind of befriended this octopus, and so it's just if you like nature documentaries, it's kind of a unique take on that. I will say it's a good documentary. I think there were better documentaries.
Yeah, to be honest, I only saw two of them in the category this year. So I saw Collective and I saw The Mole Agent.
Okay. So Collective, though,
That's stunning.
I've been blown away. That movie is incredible, and I feel like anybody who likes movies about sort of investigative journalism. So like if you're a fan of like Spotlight or All the President's Men, this is like a must see. And then it just kind of balloons into this movie. It seems like it's about one thing, and it kind of really turns into this whole thing about corruption and government, which doesn't sound like a fun watch either. But like if you're a fan of, say, a show like The Wire, which kind of did the same thing, I feel like Collective is just this really great, tight documentary. It starts out as about, in Romania, there's these investigative journalists, and they're looking into a fire that broke out in a club. The club was called Collective, and that's where the name of the movie comes from. But the more they start to look into this tragic fire, the more they start to kind of see corruption spreading all throughout the system of government.
How pervasive it is. Right.
And so you're partially kind of along the ride with these journalists. And then as the movie goes on, it kind of pivots to this health director who gets elected. And by all accounts, seems to be someone who wants to make good change.
Right.
And you just see...
And he's a young guy, and he's idealistic. And he kind of gets thrown into that position because the person who formerly had that position was basically fired because of the horror surrounding what happened with this fire. Yeah,
so actually, I don't know if he was elected or just appointed. It doesn't. I don't know if it makes that clear. But either way, what the movie is concerned about is just sort of how hard it can even be to make change, like what change
to have
looks
any
like.
Impact.
But also just digging into the role of the press. It tackles so much, and it does it so well in that.
You really get to know the journalist at the heart of it, and you also get to know the health minister, the newly appointed one. So, and I think a shout out to the movie as well. It was also nominated for Best International Film. And that doesn't happen often with documentaries. And I just think it's another testament to the strength of that movie, which was amazing.
The last one, I cannot not talk about what was my favorite documentary and one of my favorite movies, period, of the year, which was Time. This is Garrett Bradley's premiere full feature documentary following Fox Rich, a woman whose husband, they were both sent to prison I think it was in the 90s, for armed robbery. She got out on a plea deal early, but her husband was sentenced to a 60-year prison sentence. And the movie is a lot about just what it means to be a family member or a spouse of someone who's been incarcerated. And you follow Fox Rich as she is trying to get clemency for her husband. And then what's amazing about the filmmaking in this is that she has been recording home videos this whole time, ever since her husband has been incarcerated and she's been out. And the way that Garrett Bradley kind of weaves this in with the current day footage of her trying to raise a family, trying to survive in this system of mass incarceration is just so inspiring. It's beautifully shot. Fox Rich is just a really amazing person, and it's just a beautiful film. It's called Time for obvious reasons. It's just such a great film that helps you meditate on this passage of time and the way that time can feel so slippery when someone is incarcerated like that.
And inspirational. We can use that these days, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I'll give a shout out to The Mole Agent just really quickly. It's about an 83-year-old man who is kind of hired to become kind of a spy in a nursing home in Chile. Our protagonist goes in, he pretends to be a new, patient at the nursing home, and he is kind of undercover, getting to know the residents, trying to find out what's going on there. And there are some very funny moments because they're trying to teach him technology so he can use to, spy and things like that. But at the same time, it is one of the most heartwarming films I've seen in a long time because he really does get to know the residents of the nursing home. He cares about them. He's just such a wonderful person himself. But it sounds like a downer. It's not, because you just learn to love these characters that live there. And he's such a charmer. I highly recommend it. It's a short one. It's, I think, only an hour and a half long, and it was really fun to watch.
That sounds great. I'm noticing a theme here. It sounds like a downer, but it's not.
Exactly. I mean, I have to say
you can say that about almost all these movies we're talking about.
Right.
We talked about Frances McDormand, but I wanted to talk a little bit about Carey Mulligan in Promising Young Woman, and that movie in general, because that movie has been, I watched it recently, and wow. Yeah.
I know, right?
What a movie.
Well, I loved it too. And that was another one of I didn't know what to expect going in. And it was like one of my most pleasurable moving experiences this year. Starts out being one
ride.
thing.
Yeah.
And then it just totally changes course. You don't know where it's going. And she was unrecognizable in this performance, I think.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty divisive movie, though. I feel like people either love it or hate it. Sounds like we're both in the love camp on this one.
Right.
But I think we should maybe give a heads up that there's a lot of people that have watched this and thought it was terrible. But I think Carey Mulligan's amazing in it. It's not, like you said, it's not what I was expecting. I didn't know what to expect, but and like I said, it's just like you're just going along for the ride on this thing.
Hopefully people don't think it's terrible. Hopefully they just kind of shake their heads a little bit. I think there's a lot to like in it, even if you don't think it's the best movie you've ever seen.
It's got an insanely dark sense of humor to it.
Right.
Yeah. So the one movie that I really lament that I have not seen is Minari. I have not seen this. So have you seen this movie?
I did. Okay. Fabulous. Again, deserving of the Best Picture nomination.
And supporting for...
Yep, supporting actress for Yu. If I pronounced that properly, I apologize if I didn't. Who's someone described her as the Meryl Streep of Korea, which I love, because she's a hugely successful actress there, and she's in Minari, and it's a story about Korean immigrants who decide to kind of relocate to rural Arkansas and start over. They're going to hopefully have their own farm. They have 2 children, a young boy who's just adorable, and an older daughter. So it's really a heartwarming tale about their adjustment to their new life. I don't want to give too much away because, again, it's just such a gorgeous film and such great performances all the way around. Stephen Yeun was nominated for Best Actor, and everyone is top rate, even the kids. So if you get a chance to see that one is on order at the library. Actually, we already have it in the DVD. So check that one out. It's really a lovely film.
All right. So before we kind of wrap this whole thing up, let's talk a little bit about maybe the movies that you loved but didn't get any attention whatsoever from the Oscars, because we know there's always a few, right?
Right. I can start. One of my first ones, and we're going to go back into that thing like it might be hard to watch, but it's really good.
Okay. All right.
So I apologize, but my first one is Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. And it's going to sound like a downer, but it's an incredibly well-acted film. And it's about a young girl from rural Pennsylvania who finds herself unexpectedly pregnant. She's a high school student. And I won't give too much away, but for a variety of reasons, you cannot get an abortion in Pennsylvania without parental consent. So on her own, she figures out that if she can get to New York, she might be able to get an abortion. And it's not an abortion movie, so I don't want to, have people think that it is. It's really about the relationship of this young woman played by Sydney Flanagan in her film debut, which she's going to be an actress to watch, and her cousin, who is played by an actress called Talia Ryder. And you just realize how much they need each other, how much they love each other and support each other, and how much they're kind of at that age, just kind of at the mercy of the events going on around them. So hopefully you can check that one out. That one's been out on DVD since the summer. So the library has it. So be sure to check that one out.
Great. Okay. So my turn here.
All right.
I'm going to go with one that I think just got missed because people didn't know what to do with it. It was either going to be a TV or a movie, and that is Steve McQueen's 5-movie series, Small Axe, which I keep just banging the drum. You've got to see these movies. There's not a bad one in the bunch. And especially if you let's say you liked The Trial of Chicago 7. Okay, that's a great courtroom drama. The first movie in this series is Mangrove, which is about another famous court case, but this time in Britain. all of these movies, these 5 movies, are about the West Indian immigrant community within London and within
right.
Britain. And there's so much. I mean, Steve McQueen is just such an amazing, gifted filmmaker, and he brings all of the tools he can bring to these 5 movies. They have different feels to them. Mangrove's kind of a courtroom drama, but Lover's Rock is just this beautiful, beautiful, like, dance movie, basically, about a house party. Red, White, and Blue, the third movie, tackles sort of the policing system and the racism within that. But it kind of spans everywhere from like the
starts in the 60s,
late 60s through about the mid 80s is where this whole thing spans. It was originally aired on the BBC, so I think that's why a lot of people have been categorizing. I think
that knocked it out from eligibility. It must have, because there's no other reason.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. My hope is that it just doesn't get lost because it just didn't get a lot of attention from either, because I think TV didn't really know what to do with it either.
Right. I think watching Mangrove and then watching The Trial of the Chicago 7 is an education in itself.
For sure.
Those 2 movies they go really well together.
Yeah, great pairing. That one, unfortunately, I think the only way to watch it right now is if you have Amazon Prime. It's streaming on there.
Right.
Okay, now we'll ping pong a little bit. What's your next one?
Okay, my next one is a small movie called The Assistant. And it stars, did you see that?
I saw that, yeah.
Stars Julia Garner. It's another movie that's only an hour and a half long and very quiet movie, if that's a description I can give it, about a young woman who's just graduated from college. She's kind of landed her dream job at a movie production company in New York. She's the administrative assistant, first one in the morning, last one to leave at night. And it literally just takes her through one day of her job. All the while she's working for this movie mogul who's sort of Harvey Weinstein-esque. Mm-hmm. And you never see him, but you feel his menace. And she just bears the brunt of it without ever even really interacting with the guy. And I think one of the best scenes of the movie, and any movie that I saw this year, is when she finally is like, had enough. And she goes to see HR about it.
I was just going to say, that's got to be one of the scenes of the year. Yeah.
Chilling scene. And it ends quietly. Again, you're going to wonder. I remember when the movie ended, I'm saying, okay, that's it. It just kind of ended. And I was like, oh, and then I was still thinking about it 2 days later, because I think it's that good a movie. It makes you think.
It leaves that impression on you. And what's funny about that movie is that it's a movie that I didn't really like it that much when I watched it.
Right.
And then
you think about
again,
it, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. It lingered a long time. And I was like, I think I like that movie more than I gave it credit for.
Yeah. And I found it was a movie that I was telling people about.
Yeah. I'm just going to do one more.
Sure.
And it's one that I felt like it had a lot of steam early on, and then it just kind of got forgotten, and that's Spike Lee's The Five Bloods. I really, really loved The Five Bloods. I think it's one of my favorite Spike Lee movies, and Delroy Lindo especially the buzz was all over for him to get a supporting actor nomination, and his performance is insanely good.
I can't figure out what happened with that one either. Do you think it just came out too early in the year and was forgotten? And again, not a lot of people could see it. You really had to seek it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was on Netflix, so if you didn't have Netflix, there was no way to watch it. That's true.
Right.
I think it was early, first of all. Second of all, I'm going to be the first to admit, even though I love it, it's a bit of a mess of a movie. Mm-hmm. But it's also a Spike Lee movie. It's got so much life to it. It pulls so much of what Spike Lee does really well together. This is a movie about 4 Vietnam veterans who go back to Vietnam. It's like a remake in a way of Treasure of Sierra Madre. And so these 4 veterans go back and try to find this gold that was supposedly buried somewhere in the jungles of Vietnam. What's also great about this is it was yet another amazing Chadwick Boseman performance. He gave us 2 Oscar-worthy performances right before he passed away, unfortunately.
It's really tragic. That's really tragic loss.
There's something so beautiful in particular about his character and performance in Da 5 Bloods that is just, there's something almost spiritual about it when you watch it. Anyways, I love that movie. It did get Terrence Blanchard was nominated for score. He always does a lot of Spike Lee scores, and he doesn't disappoint here. But that's
at least he was recognized.
It's the only nomination it got. But it is on Netflix. It's a great Spike Lee movie. I highly recommend it.
Funny that you mentioned that it's kind of a mess of a movie, because I felt that way about The United States versus Billie Holiday.
Okay, I didn't see that one, but yeah.
For which Andra Day was nominated for Best Actress, which she totally deserved. She's a recording artist. She's unbelievable voice, and she really does channel Billie Holiday if you know anything about her. But the movie, it's kind of all over the place. But I can recommend a documentary out this year called Billie, about Billie Holiday, and much more clear. And, you can follow it better and you can really understand what's going on. So I'll just do that shout out for Billie Holiday.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So even though it was an odd year with the pandemic,
yes.
a little bit of an odd Oscars ceremony.
Right.
With all of that said, there was a lot of really great film this year.
Yeah, there's definitely movies worth checking out. I loved Frances McDormand when she ended her speech last night saying, go find these movies on the big screen. I think that's true. If you can see Nomadland on a big screen, take the opportunity. So
before we go, we didn't really go movie by movie, but what are the different ways that our patrons can get their hands on some of these movies right now through the library?
Right. Still a challenge because so many are still on streaming services. Yeah. Nomadland is coming out actually tomorrow, but it is coming out Blu-ray only. So the library does have it. You can put it on hold. It'll be in tomorrow. Also on order or in already are Judas and the Black Messiah, Promising Young Woman, Minari, The Father. So you can see all of the Oscar-winning acting performances, on DVD, Blu-ray in the movie, except for Nomadland, like I said. Also, Collective, the documentary that was also nominated for Best International Film. Another Round, which won International Film, which we didn't talk about that, but I did love it.
I did too. That was a good movie. Yeah. One last little shout out for Another Round.
Right, exactly. And then The Mole Agent, which I was talking about earlier, is also out on DVD. So those are available. I think eventually all of them will make their way to DVD, Blu-ray, and of course the library will get those. But at the current time, some of those you may have to still seek out on streaming services. Yeah.
Now we don't have a lot of them, but we do have a few Rokus that you can check out, and those they're just these streaming devices that you check out for a week, and they do have Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, and Disney Plus. So that'll actually cover you quite a few of those that are exclusive to streaming right now. If you can get your hands on one of those, and you can put your hold, I think they're all checked out, but just put a hold on one in our catalog.
And they're super easy to use, so don't be intimidated.
Exactly. And we've got instructions in there when you get it for how to hook it up and how to use it and everything.
Right.
So.
Right.
All right. Well, Becky, it's always a pleasure to have you on to talk movies. We'll definitely have you on soon to talk even more movies, but this is a great annual tradition we have going on. So thank you.
It is. It's always fun. Yeah. And it was kind of nice to see you. We're Zooming, although you can't see us. So
yeah.
It's nice to see you. Yeah,
I know.
Talk to you.
We're right next to each other in the office, and we still haven't seen each other for months, I think.
I know.
So,
we're never in at the same time.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, good to see you as well, Becky. And
all right.
Thanks for coming on.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
All right, so I am certain by now you've got at least one or two movies that are on your to-watch list, and Becky just went over all the different ways you can get those movies with your library card. So make sure you head on over to our website, cooklib.org, where you can search for all those movies in the catalog and place your reserves. While you're over on our website, make sure you check out our library's blog, Shelf Life, where the staff at Cook Library share their book reviews, genealogy tips, local history stories, and so much more. That blog can be found at shelflife.cooklib.org. And if you ever want to reach out to this podcast, you have a question or comment, feel free to send us an email. Those messages can be sent to webmaster@cooklib.org. And if you are enjoying this podcast, if you like it, please help us out by sharing it with your friends, with your family, and let them know that they can catch this episode and future episodes of the Cook Memorial Public Library podcast wherever they like to get their podcasts. We will be back soon, but until then, keep reading, keep watching, and keep listening.